Here we go, here we go, here we go. Good evening, everybody. So you guys are jumping on quick tonight. Welcome to Bible Basics. We're going to get rolling very soon. Make sure you keep sending up them hearts. Oh, thank you guys. Send them up early. Swipe to the right. Share this. I'm going right now to the Millennial Facebook page, and I'm sharing this right on the Millennial Facebook page so we make sure everybody knows that we are live right now. It is going to be exciting. Make sure you swiping to the right. Share this right on your page so we let the world know we on Periscope. Of course, hey, Mr. Stan, make sure you guys, hey, Can, my wife is on. Make sure you guys let me know where you're watching from and who's in here. Give our roll call. Of course, if you're from New Psalmist, Warren's on again. These 1906 people. Let me know where you're coming from. If you're watching from New Psalmist, let me know. If you're in another church, or we got somebody from Philly in the house. If we got somebody from people from other churches, let me know what church you go to, what city, what state you're in, your pastor, all that fun stuff. Ramel, you're watching from work. Don't get in trouble now. All right, my brother Ricky Flippin, Pastor Richard Flippin from the Piney Grove Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. Met them while Joy and Walter were in school down there. I met them, so I'm glad they're on with us. Skip fight class. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Don't tell BK I said that, though. Fight class at Masada. We got some Elkridge Owens Mills, sick and shut in from Tiny Town. Hope you feel better soon. Guys are trickling on in. Hey, Miss Kimmons, on from Memphis. That's my brother's wife's mother, Jarette's mother. But she's like all of our mother-in-law too, so I'll claim it too. I got a couple mother-in-laws. I got my mother-in-law, which is Candace's mother, Miss Michelle, and Jarette's mother, my brother's wife's mother. I claim her as my mother-in-law too. So I got two mother-in-laws. And so it's more all family, all family. Faith Empowered Ministries in Baltimore, Reverend Wesley West. Oh man, I met Reverend West a couple years ago. He's doing great things. We got Newark, Delaware in the house, a New Life United Holy Church in Wilmington, Delaware. Glad you guys are on. New Psalmist, SOP member, amen. To make sure you guys are swiping to the right, sharing this, share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, share it everywhere. We want to fill this room up with people that are getting ready to study the Word of God. Today we are looking at Moses. So I'm excited. We've moved on from Genesis and now we in Exodus. So I'm going to go ahead and post this out right now. You know, the way that my computer's set up, sharing this thing from Facebook when I didn't share it myself is difficult, but I can share it on Twitter, easily retweet it. Of course, if you're tweeting, use hashtag Bible Basics. That is our hashtag for the class. So we want to get that trending so that we let the world know using Bible Basics. So it's going to be great. We're going to give a few more moments for everybody to get on in here. I know some people are still, even now, just getting home from work. Some of you guys just finished eating dinner and everything, but I want to make sure everybody gets in when we get started. Got some announcements for you guys, a lot of things going on. And New Psalmist, we got some things coming up next week, so I'm going to share those with you guys, and we're going to get right to the word. Then I'm going to let y'all go quick because tonight we've got a lot going on. We got Empire. I know y'all going to watch Empire. I know y'all going to eat and all that stuff. So I'm not going to keep you guys too long tonight. I'm going to share this right in the Millennial group on Facebook so that anybody who's in the group will see it. And once I share that, we're going to get ready to get rolling. Of course, as always, make sure you guys are sending up the heart. Share it if you haven't done so. All your followers on right here on Periscope and everybody on on Facebook and even on Twitter. Of course, if you haven't followed me yet and you just clicked on this link from somebody else, you can swipe to your right, click on my picture right there, Joshua Thomas, and click follow. That way you get updates on all the broadcasts. You get notifications right on your phone. So we'll go ahead and get kicked off. Of course, I'm Minister Joshua Thomas. I am the Millennial Ministry Leader and also the media director at New Psalmist Baptist Church right here in Baltimore, Maryland, where Bishop Walter Scott Thomas Sr. is the pastor. This is our Millennial Ministry Bible Basics Bible Study. Millennial Ministry, of course, is just 18 to 33. But we open up this Bible study to everybody because we really believe that no matter how long you've been believing, no matter how long you've been in the faith, it's always great to get a refresher course on the basics, the foundation of the Bible. And even if you're beyond the millennial age, but you've never had a basic Bible study, this class is for you, so you are definitely in the right place. Couple announcements for you. Next week at New Psalmist is an exciting week. Next week is Fresh Fire. It's our fall revival experience. It's going to be awesome, off the hook, off the chain, as Bishop says all the time. It's going to be November 16th, 17th, and 18th. We've got a dynamic worship experience planned. We're meeting with the team today, putting the final touches on Fresh Fire. If you're out there and you've been hearing about Fresh Fire and you're excited about it, just tap the screen right now. Send up those hearts. I want us to show the world that we are excited about Fresh Fire at the New Psalmist Baptist Church. That's right. Even as I talk about it, if something that I say makes you excited about Fresh Fire, send up those hearts. We have with us Dr. Charles Booth, the pastor of the Mount Olivet Baptist Church in Columbus, Ohio. He will be preaching on Monday night and Tuesday night. And then to close us off on Wednesday night is the one, the only Bishop Paul Sylvester Morton, the pastor of the Changing a Generation Church in Atlanta, Georgia, and the presiding bishop founder of the Full Gospel International Fellowship. He's going to be closing us out on that Wednesday, and recording artist Vashawn Mitchell is going to be leading us in song on that Wednesday. It's going to be great. So I encourage you to meet us right at New Psalmist. If you're in Baltimore, address is 6020 Marion Drive, Baltimore, Maryland 21215 in the Seton Business Park. It's going to be a great time. Service starts at 7 p.m. Praise and worship begins at 6:45. Now, I encourage you, everybody who watches this broadcast, everybody who's watching the replay, everybody who's watching it on YouTube or on Facebook, do your best to get there by 6:45. We have something explosive each night that's starting, but you've got to be there by 6:45 to see it. If you're not there at 6:45, you're going to miss it. So I encourage you to get there at 6:45. You can get there early. The cafe will be open starting at 5 p.m. You can get dinner, eat right there, get some time to relax after work, then head right up to the sanctuary because it's going to be dynamic. You don't want to miss this opening. I've got some of my friends from Wave down in North Carolina that are going to be sharing with us, helping us with the AV. My friend Trey Smith, he's got some cool lighting effects. If you think the things I do are all right, don't miss Fresh Fire because Trey's got some tricks up his sleeve. Armando Forwood, he's the main guy down at Wave. He's going to be mixing front of house. So the room is going to be jumping. The band was rehearsing today. I was getting so excited I could hear the band rehearsing through the floor. They're going to take us in. The choir is going to be on point. We've got some special songs. Everything is going to be great. Fresh Fire is getting ready to fall. And the best thing about it, well, not the best thing, but one of the best things about it, each night we are going to be out of service by 8:30. So it's not going to be all night. So you're saying, well, I can't come out 3 nights. I got a lot of stuff to do. Well, we are going to be out of service early each night. Yes, Nikki, we're going to have the haze. Not smoke. It's haze. It's haze. We're going to have haze, so it's going to look like smoke. But you're going to see the light and beams. It's going to look nice. But make sure we're going to be out by 8:30. So if we go over, don't fuss anybody. You come at me. But we're going to be out by 8:30. I was in the meeting today pushing the team, making sure that we did our best so that we can ensure that you guys can come for a fantastic experience, but not an experience where you say I only can come one night. But we're going to be out in good time each night so that you can come back Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I hope to see you next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at New Psalmist Baptist Church. Once again, of course, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MINJ Thomas. And as we start today, I want you guys to do me a favor. I'm going to hold up my Bible. We're in Bible study. I'm going to hold up the side so you can see Holy Bible. It's kind of backwards because I'm using my front-facing camera, but y'all know what this is. I want you guys to take a screenshot of this to let everybody know that you are in Bible study. A lot of times we do stuff, but we don't tell anybody else that we're doing it, that we're studying about God, that we're reading our Bibles. But I believe it's important that we share it so that others who have questioned, others who have been looking for a Bible study can come to us and say, I need some of what you got. And you can direct them right to this Bible study. So I'm going to hold this up for a couple more seconds. Take a screenshot. You can share it right on Facebook, right on Twitter, right now. If you don't know how to take a screenshot on the iPhone, just hold down the power button and the circle right at the bottom. Hold those down together and release them together. That'll take a screenshot and it'll prompt you right on your screen to share that screenshot so you don't even have to leave the broadcast. You won't miss anything. If you're tech savvy, you can post it on Instagram real fast and get back. Just make sure you use hashtag Bible Basics. But we want to let the world know that we are studying the Word of God. This book that he gave us, we are studying. This might help a little bit, but it's still front facing. It's flipped. But this will help us. There you go. This will help everybody know that we are studying the Word of God. Of course, one last announcement. Don't want to forget this one. Next Saturday, 5 p.m., New Psalmist Baptist Church, Surrender. Dynamic worship experience. 1 hour, 5. We'll be out no later than 6:05. It's a great time. We're going to have great singing. We're going to have the Word of God presented in a special way. I encourage you to get there with us so that you can enjoy this great time as we experience God in a contemporary manner, just for persons our age, millennials, members of F5. Anybody who's looking to encounter God, Surrender is for you. So I hope that you join with us. Now let's jump right into the Word. Last week, we finished up Genesis. We looked at Abraham, Isaac, and earlier today on Periscope, we looked at Jacob and Joseph. If you didn't get that part, I encourage you to go back after this, watch the replay. It's still up on my page. It'll be up there for a little while longer, and we'll share it on our Facebook page as well. Looking at how God spoke to Abram, changed his name to Abraham, then Abraham's son Isaac, Isaac's son Jacob, Jacob's son Joseph was sold off by his brothers into slavery, ends up in Potiphar's house, then ends up in jail, then ends up at the king's house, Pharaoh's house, and he now has dominion over the land. There's famine. His family comes to him in Egypt to receive assistance. They don't know it's him. They get there, see that the very one they counted out is now the one who has what they need. Pause right there. Isn't it amazing that when people count you out, God will turn it around so that they have to come to you to get what they need? That's amazing. I'm not preaching right now, but if I was preaching, we could go in on that point right there. If you know that's true, just hit those hearts even right there. Give me some amens on Periscope. There we go. There we go. All right. I'm a Baptist preacher. I need some amens. So y'all know about that. So then they all move to Egypt. Pharaoh welcomes in and gives them everything they want. Joseph dies. Pharaoh dies. They expand, become numerous. Then a new king arises who does not know Joseph. And he says, there are too many of these Hebrews around. We need to put them in slavery. Because if we don't, they'll rise up against us. And that is where we are. Exodus kicks off. Everything was great. We saw God's plan, the trajectory going up, 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 up. Then we get to Exodus. God's people have left the land that God gave them. They're in a foreign land. They're in Egypt. They went there for one thing, but they stayed. They did not go back home. They went there because there was famine in their land, in Canaan. So they went to Egypt, where Joseph had stored up, where they had enough stuff so they could survive through the famine. But they put down roots. They stayed in the land that was not the land that God gave them. And because they were not where God gave them, they were put into slavery. And that's where we are now. Exodus picks right up as they are now in slavery. And now we need to see a new side of God. Exodus, of course, as you know, is the second book of the Bible. Genesis, beginning, that's where we started off. If you missed those, we have them posted on our YouTube channel. And you can also find them right in the Millennial group. And then we get to Exodus. In Exodus now, we're introduced to God's chosen people. The people that we meet in Genesis. God creates the covenant with Abraham. And he tells Abraham his descendants will be as numerous as the dirt on the ground. And he will always take care of them. He will give them land. But they have gone. And now we see God's chosen people in a new situation. Exodus contains the story that's very familiar to us. Many of us have heard of the Exodus. We've heard of Moses. We've seen the movie that comes on Easter. That's ironic, but we'll get to that later. Where Moses is standing up in Pharaoh saying, let my people go, stand up in front of the Red Sea, they're going through. We've all seen it, we've heard it at some point in life. Many of us have even read this story many times, but we've never really dug into it. And today we're really going to focus on what sets Moses up, because Moses becomes perhaps the greatest figure in the Old Testament. He's the most mentioned. His name is mentioned the most times. It is the traditionalists, I'll say, have said and really go by the understanding, and many scholars agree, that the first 5 books of the Bible are often subscribed as the author of those was Moses. So many believe that Moses wrote these first 5. That's what they believe, and that's what the generally accepted understanding is that he's the author of these first 5 books. And he is perhaps, and many would even agree, that the greatest figure in the Old Testament. He is the one that the linchpin upon which everything else happens is formed right here in these first couple of chapters of the book of Exodus. So it's important that we get an understanding of who this guy Moses is. So let's look at the context upon which Moses arises as a critical figure. As I mentioned, a new king has come into power. He does not know Joseph. He does not know that Joseph is the one who interpreted the king's dreams, Pharaoh's dreams, and told Pharaoh that the dreams he was having meant that there was going to be 7 years of prosperity followed by 7 years of famine, and that they must store up in the good times so that when the lean time comes, they will have enough in storage so they will not have any issues. He does not know that that Pharaoh trusted Joseph and gave Joseph dominion over everything. That Pharaoh is the one who invited Joseph's family, Joseph's father, Jacob, to come to Egypt, to have whatever they wanted, to be rich, to have the things that they needed. Anything they wanted was at their fingertips. He does not know that. And now he arises, and all he sees is that these Hebrews have multiplied. They've had kids upon kids upon kids, and now they are all over the land. And the first thing he looks at, he says, we got to do something, because if we get attacked, if one of our enemies comes in, they may rise up against us. And a lot of times we realize the situations we are in are not because we've done anything wrong to someone, but other people see us as a potential threat. One thing to always understand, no matter what situation you're in, if you feel opposition coming up against you, don't always think that somebody's taking a personal attack on you. Don't always go to the line and say, well, they just don't like me for whatever reason. No, a lot of times people act the way they do towards us because they see us as an attack on them. Not because of something they've done, but a perception, a thought they've had that somebody may have planted a seed in their mind, and because of that, they want to do whatever it takes to take us out. It may be on your job. You may be facing a situation where it feels like your boss, your coworkers are trying to take you down. It's not because they don't like you. It's not because you've done anything wrong. It's simply because they've perceived you as a threat. And my brothers and sisters, even as you continue in this Bible study, as you continue to learn more about the Word of God, continue to grow in your faith and become a stronger believer, people will see you as a threat. Don't get upset about it. Don't fall down. Don't get broken down. Don't be crying all over the place. That just means that they see something in you sometimes that you don't see in yourself. These Egyptians look at the Israelites, the Hebrews, as is seen, especially in the NIV, and they're saying, we got to do something because they're taking over the land. But they never once had the thought to say, let's overthrow Pharaoh. They never once had the thought to say, let's gang up on them. They were just comfortable and confident in living their lives. But the Egyptians saw them as a threat. And because of that, they put plans and systems in place to oppress them, to neutralize the threat. So a lot of times the things we are facing aren't attacks on us personally. It's just attacks on what people see in us. And sometimes people see things in us that we don't even see in ourselves. If anybody's ever been in a situation like that, where you've seen people treat you a certain way and you didn't even see that in yourself, just send the hearts up on the screen. I want to make sure that you guys are seeing what I'm talking about, because that is so critical in facing and dealing with a lot of the things that we'll face. It's not that people are trying to take us out because of something we've done. A lot of times it's because they see stuff in us that we didn't see in ourselves. And oftentimes, the very thing that they see in us is something that once we see it in ourselves, no matter what they think, there's nothing they can do that really stops us from doing what God has for our lives. So that's the context of this passage. That's the context of the Lamb. They've now enslaved all the Hebrews, and they have slave masters, and they have difficult tasks. They have much work to do to build great structures, and they have no say over their future. But the interesting thing happens. They're oppressed. They're pushed down. But even in oppression, they continue to multiply. Even being pushed down, even as the Pharaoh and the leaders of the Egyptian people are trying to put more things in place to stop them, they continue to multiply. And Pharaoh sees this and he says, we need to do something else. We need to take an extra measure. He goes to midwives, tries to tell the midwives to mess things up, to kill the babies. Midwives fear God. And because these are God's chosen people, they know not to mess with God. Thing to always remember, when you are God's chosen people, when you are God's chosen person, no matter what the enemy tries to do to you, it will not take you out. That's critical. I want you guys, if you know that's true and you've seen it in your own life, just type amen, send up those hearts on the screen, because that's a truth that's a lot of times glossed over when we read this, the first and second chapter of Exodus, but we really have to look at that for a second. God promised to take care of these people. These are his chosen people. So no matter what Pharaoh does, God still will take care of his people. There's a truth about God that you must internalize. It's part of my theology. As I talk and I share what I believe about God, that's my personal theology. As you grow in faith, as you grow in understanding of God in your own life, you will develop your own theology that comes out of your own experience. One thing about God to remember and to always hold your hat on is that no matter what it looks like to us, no matter what we see, God still is all powerful. So no matter what, no matter if all the evil systems conspire to take us out, God still has the final say. And because God has the final say, it doesn't matter what their plan is. God still has authority over it. Think of it like this. There are these underbosses and all these other people in an organizational structure. And you may think, oh, they've got power. They've got the ability to do this. But at the top of all of that is God. And if God doesn't want something to happen, it won't happen. So always rest assured of that. Even if you look like you're right at the end of your rope, at the end where it looks like you're not going to be able to make it anymore, always remember that God still has a plan for you. God had a plan for the Hebrews. Therefore, no matter what Pharaoh did, God was not going to allow that to wipe his people out. We see it. Pharaoh puts new plans in place. He says, okay, the midwives ain't helping me out. So now I'm going to put a decree out. Any male child that's born, throw him in the river. That's as bad as get. He just tell them, throw them kids in the river. Now, if you know you can't hide children, you can try to tell them be quiet. Baby's going to cry. You just can't stop it. So there's no way you can hide them but for so long. That's where we pick up with Moses' story. Moses' parents, mother has tried to hide him, but when he gets to about 2 months or so, it just won't happen no more. She knows that she can no longer walk around and act like she don't have no baby, because this baby making noise. This little baby, Moses, is just too loud. I can't do it no more. She knows that the only way that he can survive is if I send him out. She puts him in the basket, sends him down the river. Sends down the river, and at the end of that river stream, Pharaoh's daughter, the king's daughter, is there. Opens up the basket, sees this little baby boy, thinks that this little baby is so great, and now she wants him as her own. She takes him and says, I'm going to raise this like he's mine. That's a miracle. Let's look at that. She puts the baby in alligator-infested water. Anything could have happened to that, to Moses. Sends him down the river. Pharaoh's daughter picks him up. And now this child that should have been dead is now going to be raised in a royal manner. Isn't it amazing that God can turn a situation, the thing that many of us have heard, what was meant for evil, God turned it for our good. Moses was born after the decree had been made that he should be killed because he was a male child. His mother sends him down the Nile in a basket, and he's picked up by Pharaoh. Not only is he going to live, but he will be raised in the royal palace. That is amazing. So that's a little bit of Moses' backstory. That's how we get there. Moses' life is broken down into essentially 3 segments, each segment lasting 40 years. First segment is his maturation after he's born to the age of 40, growing up in the Pharaoh's house, understanding the ways, and growing up, he had status, but he was always a Hebrew. We'll talk about that later. But he was in Pharaoh's house, so he was able to live. He grew. He had the things he needed. He had whatever. He had food to eat. He had clothes. He had the nicest things because he grew up in Pharaoh's house. The second 40 years is when he goes out. We're going to touch on that in a little bit. And then the next 40 years is when he comes back. So Moses' life is broken down into these 40-year segments. So after the first 40 years, where we get ready for the second segment, Moses is out one day. He's realized he's in Hebrew. And this is something that's very practical and very easy to understand. He knew that he did not look like the Egyptians, but rather he looked like the Hebrews. Some people need to go deep into it and say he didn't realize he was one of the Hebrews until he saw an Egyptian beating the Hebrew that day. No. He knew that he was not an Egyptian, but he was a Hebrew, simply because he looked differently. Some things are easy to understand. When we study the Bible, and in this Bible study, you don't go into it being all super holy, super deep, whatever. No, it's really simple. This boy is born of Hebrew mother and father. So therefore, he's a Hebrew. He looks like a Hebrew. He has distinct Hebrew features that separated the Hebrews from the Egyptians. So even though he grew up in Pharaoh's house, at some point, he made the connection that I was not, my mother, the woman who birthed me, is not in this house. And he understood. Whether he knew all of the details surrounding his birth and how he ended up in the palace, we're not sure of that. But we do know, and I think it's easy to understand, and common sense leads us to the fact that he knew that he was a Hebrew. Text records that on one day he's out. He's out and he sees an Israelite beating, he sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. And he's enraged and kills the Egyptian. Now everything changes. Because, as I said, he is a Hebrew. He kills an Egyptian. Yes, he grew up in Pharaoh's house. Yes, he grew up as if he was a member of the royal family. But he was still a Hebrew, and he killed an Egyptian. Therefore, Pharaoh wanted him dead. Because whoever you are, though you try your best to escape it, though we may try to go live somewhere else, we are who God made us. And though we may see ourselves differently, society sees us oftentimes for who we really are. He runs, he flees. This is when that second 40 years picks up. He goes out, Midian, has an encounter with 7 daughters of a priest. You may see it as Reuben, but that don't get confused and get excuse me, let me make sure I give this to you guys right. You may see it as Raul rather, but that's really Jethro. It's the same name. Sometimes it's understood as he had one name in his community and another name that was given to him, or his role as a priest gave him a different name. And that's why we see 2 names for the same person. We'll refer to him as Jethro, just because that's the name we see after the first encounter. Encounters his daughters, helps them out, goes back to his house, invited back, and he's given a wife, Zipporah, who becomes his wife that we see about it in a little bit. So now he's got a wife. He is in a new land. He's got a new situation going. He's now out of Egypt. This is Midian, and he's got new things going. But he's out one day, and he sees a bush with fire but is not consumed. Strange. I think all of us can agree if we were out and saw a bush on fire but not burning up, we would stop and say, this is weird. He goes over to the bush and hears a voice, God calling out to him. God tells him, take off his shoes, this holy ground. And God begins to change the course of history. This encounter is where we're going to stay. We're going to park here for a little bit, because this is the encounter. This is the linchpin upon which everything we study from this point out hinges on. Bishop talked about it in the sermon last week. What would have happened if Moses ran from this bush and didn't go over to it and did not have this encounter and did not meet this God? Because this is the moment where everything changes. The Israelites, Hebrews, one and the same, we can use those interchangeably, have cried out. They have realized that they're God's chosen people. And they've said, Lord, remember us. And God says, I remember you guys because you're my chosen ones. Not as if he forgot them, but remember from the perspective of, I remember the covenant I made with you. I remember the covenant I made with Abraham. And because of it, I will come to your rescue. Moses is out, goes to the bush, is told to take off his shoes, and God reveals himself to Moses. And this is something that's critical. And as you guys now, we're in Exodus, you've gone through Genesis, so now you have some understanding. God says, I am the God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Anybody notice anything different there? When God went to Abram, he didn't have any of that to say. He went to Abram and just said, I'm God. Do this. He goes to Moses and says, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We now have a track record of who God is. That's the beautiful thing about studying these Old Testament books, that why you really have to start at Genesis, because you see God's track record from the very beginning. God now goes to him, and Abram had to go straight off of faith. He had to believe that he could drop everything and go. Moses now has already had some type of introduction to this God, because God introduces himself as the God of his fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That gives this God instant credibility. Abram had to just trust. He had to believe. And as he believed, God revealed himself more and more through situations that gave him the assurance that he was doing the right thing. Moses now has the assurance from the start that this is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's something that we have, my brothers and sisters, is that we have an assurance that the God that we encounter is the God that we've read about in the Bibles. It's the God who encountered and made himself relevant to his people, his chosen people. And now it's the same God that we encounter. We have a history with God. All we have to do is read the Bible. In each page of the Bible, we read about God's chosen people and their encounters with God, how he revealed himself to them. And because he revealed himself to them, we now have an understanding of not only who he is, but we also have an understanding of what he can do for us. Because if he did it before, he can do it again. If you know that's your own testimony, just hit that screen, send up those hearts. If you know that God has revealed himself in a way upon which you knew who he was because you had seen his acts in the past. When you meet somebody, the first thing they say oftentimes is, hey, I'm so-and-so. I know your friend so-and-so. Because that gives them instant credibility with you, so that you now say, okay, we've got a mutual connection. But that's what's so great about this burning bush experience, is because this is the first time where somebody meets God, and God says, I'm the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. 400 years later, when Jacob encountered God, he was the God of Abraham and Isaac. He was still in the direct line. So he knew Abraham, he knew Isaac, because those were his paternal father. That was his father and his paternal grandfather. So he had that connection right there. But Moses is generations upon generations later. And God shows up, and he's still true to to his promise. That's the thing that's great about God, is that he holds true to his promise to thousands and thousands and thousands of generations. And he shows up to Moses and says, Moses, I am who I am, and I've got an instruction for you. That is the most holy name of God that we find. It's translated to Yahweh. You'll often see it spelled differently. You may see it without any of the vowels, because Yahweh was so holy that you could not even say it. That's the thing that's so great about this story, is God reveals himself to Moses in such holy manner. It's the God from the burning bush that tells him, I'm the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And I have remembered my people, and I'm sending you to deliver them. Throughout the rest of the 3rd and 4th chapter, we see the conversation. Moses is doubting himself. Moses doesn't think he can do it. God says, fine, if you don't think you can do it, that's all right. But you got a brother Aaron. You may say, well, how did he have 2 brothers? Aaron was born before the decree was made that all the male children must be killed. So Aaron was able to grow up without worrying about fear, without having to be put in a basket and sent down the Nile, without thinking he'll be killed at every turn. So Aaron is alive, and Aaron is older than Moses. And now God is saying, well, I'm going to use your brother, and he's going to be the mouthpiece that you will give him the words to say. And you guys are going to go to Pharaoh and ask just to go out for a 3-day festival. Pharaoh going to say no. And that's when I'm going to show y'all my power. And that's the great thing that I love about this story, is that God says, I'm going to show up through you to deliver my people. You never know who God's going to use. We never know what God's going to do, but we do know that God always has a plan. When Moses was sent down that river, God had a plan even then, that the very situation that was designed to take Moses out, God would turn it on its head so that Moses would grow in that world. He could be able to go into the king's house to get the best of everything, then come back and stand before the king and say, let my people go. That's the great thing about Moses, the introduction of Moses. We're going to stop right there. Moses is getting good. I know y'all saying, well, I want to get to the plagues. I want to get to other stuff. We're going to pick that up. But I wanted to make sure that we spent time on Moses and this experience. Because if you don't understand this burning bush experience, you really don't have a complete understanding of what it is that set Moses on this trajectory, where he would go stand before Pharaoh, tell him, let my people go. Go stand before the Red Sea and the seas would part. Go up and get the 10 Commandments. Go and lead the people through 40 years in the wilderness, preparing them to go into the promised land. It all started at a bush. Some situations in our lives may seem small. Some encounters may seem trivial. But that's when God shows up and says, on this day, I'm changing it all around. Hope that you guys enjoyed this look at Moses. If you enjoyed it, I want you guys to just send up the hearts right now. If you've been blessed today, if you have been blessed, type in amen, share your amens, take your screenshots, send them out. But I want to make sure that you guys were blessed by this message, by this lesson today, because Moses is such a critical figure. You can't understand the Old Testament without really understanding Moses. And when God revealed himself to him, Moses asked, who is this God? If they ask me, all you have to do is say, I am that I am. The holiest name of God, we find it right here in Exodus 3:14. I encourage you, if you didn't read before the scope, go back, read through the first few chapters of the book of Exodus. Read through it for yourself, because there are little nuggets here and there that'll pop out. The stories that we lead up to Moses' encounter may seem small, but you can expand upon them. Allow your creativity to fill in the scene. Close your eyes and picture what it looked like, what it really meant to grow up in the king or the Pharaoh's house for 40 years, to be a Hebrew in a foreign land, but be accepted as far as he was allowed to have whatever he needed, but also see when he did one thing wrong, how they turned their back on him. And really put yourself in those shoes, because the Bible is meant for us to understand through the story, Not to be super holy, super deep, and all of that. The Bible is meant for us to read these stories, let them come alive, to use our understanding, to bring our own knowledge of the way we see the world, to paint the picture, to build these characters, not to bring in stuff that's not there, like we see in some of these Hollywood movies where they're bringing in things in the Noah's Ark story or this Exodus story that just never happened. No, that's not what God gives us to do. But he says, no, look at this. I'm going to give you the character sketch. Now I want you to put all the pieces together and really begin to dig into what Moses was thinking as he walked out there on that day when he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and the feelings that he probably felt. He probably may have dealt with some tension for his whole life, saying, I should be out there doing more, but I'm in here while they're out there building bricks. They're moving great pieces of land. They're doing a lot of work, and I'm sitting here at the king's table. There was tension there. You don't just go out one day and just start killing and kill somebody for doing something. There is a build-up. But that's all part of who Moses is. And that's why it's important that you read it, and then logically and put it together and say this was the day when it all came to an head. Then when he's out there and he sees this burning bush and he goes over to it. And that one day changes everything. So I'm so glad I had this opportunity to share with you guys today. I hope that this blessed you. I hope that this gave you an understanding of Moses' backstory, because next week we're going to pick up. We're going to go right through the plagues. We're going to get right to the Red Sea. And then we're going to start looking at what happened, because God made them a promise. But why is it that none of them saw it? Chew on that for the next couple of days. Next week is Fresh Fire at New Psalmist. So on Wednesday, we will be in revival. Now, that presents a challenge for us because we meet every Wednesday at 8 p.m. So what I'm thinking, you guys let me know if you would like this. I'm thinking that next week, maybe we move our Bible study to Thursday. Because, you know, there's a lot of stuff in this story, and I don't want to miss a week with you guys, but I think we should move it to Thursday. If you guys think Thursday would be a good idea, just I want you guys to send them to hearts. Send me just write high five, send me the high five emoji, send a yes in the comments. I want to make sure that this is what you guys want to do. If you guys want to take a break, that's fine with me. We pick up the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. But if you want to pick back up next week on Thursday, right after Fresh Fire, just go ahead and send yes. Okay, I think Nikki and Ryan, we're going to have to pick it back up next week because this is just so good. And today I threw in a pop-up, talked about Joseph and Jacob. So make sure you're following me on Periscope. You can swipe to the right, click on my picture, click follow. Oh, I like that. I like that that diamond. Was that Warren threw up the yo? I'm telling your Alpha brothers that. So I want to make sure you guys are following me because, oh, happy birthday. Somebody's birthday, Lady of Faith 01. Happy birthday. Happy early birthday tomorrow. I want to make sure you guys are staying connected because sometimes, oh, what's up? That's my line president, Jonathan Grant, Dr. Kingpin. What's up, bro? So, yeah, I want to make sure you guys are staying connected because there's so many great stories. We can't go through all of them in just this 40-minute Bible study. So there's some things I'm going to drop in every now and then just so that you guys get more understanding because it is really my goal that you guys have an understanding of the Bible. I'm not saying you need to go out and be able to write a dissertation on it. But no, I want you to understand what it is that you believe. And you can't fully understand what Jesus comes to do without understanding all that happened in the Old Testament. There's a reason there's an Old Testament and a New Testament. Old does not delineate bad. Old just is a term that's used to differentiate between old and new. That's it. Don't look into it and say, oh, well, no, now Jesus came to abolish the law, so there's no need for none of it. No, that's not what he came to do. Jesus often talked about it. He used the stories from the Old Testament. He quoted from the book of Isaiah. He read out the Torah that was in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 61, I believe it was. Spirit of the Lord is upon me. You know, so that's Jesus came as a part of this. He came to fulfill it. But if you don't understand this, then you won't understand what Jesus came to do. So I encourage you to stick with us. We got 2 more lessons. Next week, we're going to go through the plagues. I'm going to post all the assignments in the Facebook group. But next week, we're going to briefly go through the plagues. We're going to go through the actual Exodus. And then we're going to talk about what happened in the wilderness and some of the things there. Because the beginnings is just about over. We've got 2 more lessons in this beginnings module. Then we move on to some of the books of history. One of my favorite books in the Bible is the book of Joshua. So we're going to get there soon. So I love you guys. Thank you for joining in with us. Of course, we're going to be posting everything right on the Facebook group. That's, again, facebook.com/groups/MPBCMM. If you're on Facebook, just search Millennial Ministry NP. Hope to see you guys there. Thank you for tuning in. Special shout out to my family down in Atlanta, Greater Piney Grove Church, and Pastor Ricky Flippin down there for having your young adults on. I'm glad you guys could share with us today. So until next week, y'all be blessed, and I will be talking to you soon.